stewards who have lived here for tens of thousands of years and know best how to protect our environment. And we're celebrating this introduction of the Green New Deal 5 years ago, and we're committing ourselves to work even harder for the next 5 years so that we double the progress which we have made, and we are absolutely committed to accomplishing that goal. We have tremendous leaders in the House and Senate who are going to be speaking here today, as well as all of the national organizations who have put all of their efforts behind the Green New Deal for these past 5 years. So it was in February of 2019 that Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and I gathered here with our partners and said that Washington had to be braver and bigger and act more boldly than it had ever done before to fight the climate crisis. We needed a Green New Deal, a 10-year mobilization for jobs and justice and climate. And so we built it in Los Angeles, in Boston, in Cambridge, in New York City, in Europe. Green New Deals were introduced. We introduced the Green New Deal for public housing, the Green New Deal for public schools, the Green New Deal for health, the Green New Deal for cities. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and I introduced the Civilian Climate Corps to engage our young people in living wage jobs to help save the planet. And now we have an American Climate Corps that President Biden has announced to mobilize and train a diverse generation of 20,000 young people, service members fighting the climate crisis across our country. And the Climate Corps is 2.5 times bigger than the Peace Corps. That is a victory for the Green New Deal and for all of the young people who demanded change. And we passed the largest climate and environmental justice bill in history. And now the Inflation Reduction Act is investing hundreds of millions of dollars across our country to transform our energy system. And that all happened because of the Green New Deal. But we're here today because the Green New Deal is everywhere. This fight for a livable future was fought for and by all of us, all workers, all ages, all communities, especially Black, brown, indigenous communities that are most at risk from the climate, the health, the economic and racial injustice crises which we face. We needed solidarity, not solitary action. Since that day, in February of 2019, our country has been through times of great difficulty. Our communities have been devastated by the COVID pandemic. We marched for racial justice in the face of brutality. Workers around the country saw CEOs' salaries grow while their jobs got cut. And we have seen climate chaos on a scale previously thought to be unimaginable, and it is only getting worse. But we refuse to crumble in the face of these crises. We have seen communities around the country build Green New Deal projects with funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, everything from fare free transit programs in Boston to clean, affordable housing in Seattle. And in the past 5 years, we quadrupled how much affordable, clean solar power gets added to the grid every single year. We are seeing a Green New Deal world that can be better for all of us when Washington is willing to be bigger and bolder and braver than it has ever been before. And in the next 5 years, we have to take even more ambitious steps forward towards rebuilding our public services, towards supporting union clean economy workers, towards phasing out fossil fuels, towards holding big oil, big gas accountable for what they have done. But if the past 5 years have taught us anything, it is that we will do it. We will win, and we will do it together. And that is the only way that we will win. So that is what we're celebrating today, the progress that we've made, but also the commitment that we're making to an even better future as we fight together to secure that future. So let me turn now and recognize my great partner for the past 5 years, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Senator Markey. What an incredible, amazing day. 5 years ago, we introduced a 10-year vision for social and ecological transformation big enough to save our planet, the Green New Deal. It was laid out on 3 core principles to transform how the United States approached climate policy. The first was to dramatically accelerate the timeline for decarbonizing the U.S. economy. The second was to say that we are going to create millions of jobs in this country to get it done. And the third principle was that we were going to leave no community behind in that transformation. Now, when we unveiled the Green New Deal, the critics jumped against it nearly immediately. They said it was an impossible dream, too impractical, and not serious enough. And today we can say that they were wrong. In the last 5 years, we have made major strides in tackling the climate crisis and creating millions of jobs by building together a diverse coalition of people committed to a better future. From community organizers and frontline climate activists to labor organizers and everyday working people, we are winning with a movement that rejects a dystopian future left to us and is committed to building a new one. It was Green New Deal organizing across the country that paved the way for the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest ever federal investment in U.S. history to tackle the climate crisis and invest in a clean energy economy. This is a $369 billion investment that will create 9 million new jobs with public investments in renewable energy, transportation, manufacturing, public lands, and more, and that is just the down payment. It was Green New Deal organizing that paved the way for that to get done. We should not settle for anything less than transforming our society and economy for the better to save our planet. That means transitioning to 100% clean and renewable energy, ending fossil fuels, revitalizing our public services like healthcare and education, and taxing billionaires and polluters to tackle the systemic inequality that got us here in the first place. 5 years in, we understand more than ever of what we stand to lose. We are watching in real time the destabilizing effects of a deeply unequal and fossil fuel dependent global economy. We see natural disasters at unimaginable scales, the fracturing of our social safety nets in the face of a global pandemic, and our tax dollars paying for war after war and tax cut after tax cut, while our healthcare and housing are increasingly out of reach here at home. We know that this is all to the benefit of powerful corporations and the very wealthy few who stand to profit from squeezing the people of this country and the planet to the very brink. This moment is not just a crisis for our planet. It is turning into a crisis for our economy and our democracy. Abroad, authoritarians use this opportunity to rise to power, and here at home, they are knocking at the gates. But we know there is a better way. The time is now to create sustainable prosperity for all, not just the very few. And in transitioning to a clean economy, we can create millions of jobs in construction, manufacturing, education, engineering, and beyond. And we have already started. We can tackle the environmental injustices of communities poisoned by toxic exposure and polluted air and water. We can build housing that's actually affordable for everyday Americans and raise the standards of life and labor to fight for guaranteed health care and expanded caregiving for all who need it. The powerful say it's impossible. Don't listen to them. It's not only possible, but we have already started to win. With organized labor, the movement has won historic contracts for the United Auto Workers, the Teamsters, and others. Through bold climate action, climate protectors successfully convinced President Biden just recently to pause all new approvals for liquid natural gas export products. That just happened. And through youth action, we've won an American Climate Corps. And by bringing forgotten communities into the fold, we have elected Green New Deal champions across Congress, state houses, city councils, and state legislatures across the country, all of whom reject fossil fuel lobbyist money. All of this was unthinkable 5 years ago, and all of it is done. To celebrate the momentous steps we have taken and to refocus on even bigger steps we have yet to take, Senator Markey and I are very proud to be unveiling a 5-year report on the Green New Deal. This report will provide organizers, offices, and organizations with the tools necessary to communicate what we've accomplished in the last 5 years and where we plan to go from here. It includes a timeline, examples of Green New Deal projects, and a policy primer for what comes next. And I cannot thank each and every one of you enough for refusing to give up. We have no choice but to win this fight. And it is our insistence on a better future that will make it so. That's why the next decade of the Green New Deal is not only necessary, but far more possible than ever before. The world we are fighting for is right here. And we work to grow it every time we replace fear and isolation with solidarity and action, along with love for our fellow Americans, global community, and the planet. So we're here to say, join us for the next few years and the next chapter of the Green New Deal, and let's finish the job. Thank you, everybody. And up next, we will call up Brandon Mancia, Director of Region 9A of the UAW. Come on up.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Mancia, the Director of Region 9A, covering New England, New York, and Puerto Rico of the United Auto Workers International Union. I want to start off by thanking Senator Markey and Representative Ocasio-Cortez for their leadership on the Green New Deal. We are proud to have these two champions of labor represent our members in Region 9A of the UAW. We're also proud to have supported the effort in New York to pass the Build Public Renewables Act this past year, and we were successful in doing so. As the UAW, you can count on us to continue organizing for a worker-powered transition to a green economy. The UAW is here today to not only celebrate the anniversary of this historic achievement, the Green New Deal's launch, but to highlight the role of labor in this fight and give you a sense of what we see as the way forward. A livable and sustainable planet is only possible if working class communities are able to live a sustainable life in it. For the Green New Deal to live up to its historical reference point, the New Deal, it needs to not only push for impressive investments in a transition to a green economy, which is what we're doing and seeing, but it has to unleash the power of working people to organize, just as they did in the 1930s and the 1940s. The UAW is committed to a future in which the labor movement organizes millions of unorganized workers and also secures a just transition to a new green economy. We don't want a green economy that only benefits the 1% and a handful of billionaires. The same people, by the way, who are responsible for the climate crisis that we find ourselves in the first place. Working class people are tired of footing the bill for climate change, and now is the time for us to stand up. Last year, the UAW led a historic stand-up strike. We struck the big three American auto companies all at once for the first time in our history. We told the companies that record profit meant record contracts, and we won. Possibly the most important part of this victory, and there are many highlights, was the fact that we secured a path to a just transition for our auto worker membership. We were able to save our future and ensure that auto jobs, whether they're assembling traditional ICE vehicles or the future EV vehicles, that work will be UAW members' work. The transition to electric vehicles and the battery work that is required to power the EVs is going to be in our master agreement. So let me give you a concrete example of what the just transition looks like in practice. In 2019, and you might know this story, General Motors shut down the Lordstown assembly plant in Ohio, which devastated an entire community. Workers were forced to make life-shattering decisions, and our government at the time abandoned them. Now think about this past year during our stand-up strike. Earlier in the year, Stellantis despite record profits, decided to shut down the profitable Belvedere plant in Illinois. And once again, workers were forced to move all around the country to keep their work, and the town's local economy was going to be sacrificed at the altar of corporate greed. What were we able to do in Belvedere during our stand-up strike? Well, we did the impossible. We not only reopened the assembly plant, something that unions are not supposed to do anymore, and not only that, we were also able to secure a new battery plant investment in Belvedere. So this is what the just transition and the Green New Deal looks like when labor leads, when worker justice instead of corporate profit is the priority. The climate crisis is the greatest fundamental threat to humanity. The Green New Deal makes it an opportunity to reimagine a better world. As UAW, we know we must fight for that future. So we're asking for the labor movement to prepare for May Day 2028, not only for strong contracts, not only to improve our quality of life and our cost of living, but for our members' future, for the future of the working class, and for the future of our planet. So let's organize like hell to win the Green New Deal, and let's have labor be in the driver's seat. Solidarity forever, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bravo.
Thank you. Excellent job. Excellent job.
And now I will introduce Senator Ron White.
Thank you. Thank you. 5 years ago, we came out here and said that the broken down, busted, fossil fuel rewarding tax code ought to be thrown in the garbage can. Now everybody said, yeah, fat chance. Senate Finance Committee never did anything like that in 100 years. And I said, well, are you really gonna bet against all these grassroots organizers? And I said, the choice for America is gonna be all of these wonderful grassroots organizers, or not far from where we stand are all the office buildings full of the fossil fuel lobbyists. And I said, what's the choice going to be for America? Is it going to be these young people, or is it going to be those folks up in the fossil fuel lobby offices? And my God, when the Senate Finance Committee got together in the spring of 2021, everybody still said impossible. The lobbyists were sending out tweets and emails and grassroots, grass turf campaigns, so to speak, and nobody thought it could happen. But for the first time, we exposed how wasteful those fossil fuel tax dollars are. A lot of them go to deals involving Europe, for God's sakes. And so by the end of spring of 2021, we did, as the Congresswoman said, launched out of the Senate Finance Committee. And 90% of it was in the final package. We didn't get to throw the whole tax code in the garbage can on energy. But let me tell you something. We made one hell of a down payment. $380 billion. No longer just tax policies that would go for a year and a half or something like that, and then they'd be re-upped for the big, powerful people. A fundamental shifting of the federal tax system to get in sync with all these young people talking about a very different energy future than today. So I promised Eddie and the Congresswoman I wouldn't give a filibuster, and I have just one last thought. We are just getting started, folks. That's right. And here's the next thing. We got to green up the energy transmission system. That's right. That was the single biggest thing we didn't get over the finish line, was the transmission system. So we are getting started. My colleagues are outlining our agenda, but I want you to know that what nobody said was possible 5 years ago, something the Senate Finance Committee had never done in 100 years, not only is it possible, but it has laid the foundation for us to keep going with transmission, with batteries, with solar, wind. We're on our way. We are not going back. Thanks, everybody.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now we're going to hear from Congressman Raul Grijalva, ranking member of the Natural Resources Committee.
Very kind. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to thank my colleague from the House of Representatives, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Thank you very much for her leadership and the intensity and intelligence that she's brought to the House of Representatives. I want to thank my good friend, Senator Markey, for his leadership and for bringing us all together to talk about 5 years of the Green New Deal and the monumental steps that have been taken in a direction to really bring us as a people, as a world, to the point that our lives are sustainable, that opportunity is still part of our future, and that the issues of equity and fairness are part and parcel of what we do, not only about climate, but what we do about our world and where we live. And I want to say that momentum is important. And right now we're in the midst of holding on to what we've gained. And in that process, it's the same opposition. That hasn't changed. Neither have the tactics. And as we go forward in that, holding on to what we have and making sure that we have a foundation going forward to build on the Green New Deal, to build on 5 years, to codify into law the protections and the laws that will keep us in that transition and in that direction. Since I got to Congress, I became a granddaddy. I have 5 little grandkids. I don't have them, but you know what I mean. And in the process, one has to look beyond one's own nose and realize that we have a generational transition that is going on in this country as well. And the top issue has to be the kind of world we're going to live in, the kind of opportunity and future that is there for the generations coming up. And the one clear, unifying issue and challenge that faces us is climate justice, and a sustainable world. And the Green New Deal has taken us on that road. What's left for us and all of us to do is to protect it and to build it and to make sure that that investment is there for the generations to come. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Beautiful job. Thank you. And there's a roll call on the Senate floor, and I want to make sure that Senator Padilla can make that roll call. So I'm going to introduce Senator Padilla, then Ro Khanna, and then Senator Blumenthal, just so that we can make the roll calls on the floor. And then Senator Mazie Hirono. Yeah. So Senator Padilla. Beautiful.
Thank you, Ed. Good morning, everybody. I want to thank my colleagues who have been the champions for years on this. Senators Markey, Wyden, Hirono, Welch, of course, Representatives Ocasio-Cortez, Grijalva, and all the labor leaders, all the environmental justice activists, all the youth organizers who have woken up the conscience of the nation. Now, for decades, we've talked about climate change. For too long, people felt hopeless. But today, 5 years since the introduction of the Green New Deal, it is absolutely clear that the American people can and do make a difference. A little over 5 years ago, let's remember where we were 5 years ago. We had a climate denier in the White House. We had Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. We were looking at a future that was dependent on fossil fuels and would lead nothing other than to a burning planet. But we didn't give up. In 2018, Americans stood up in overwhelming numbers and elected a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives. But we weren't done. Not even close. 5 years ago, Senator Markey, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, and so many of you gathered here and announced a transformative plan to save the planet. But we weren't done yet. We marched, held rallies, and in 2020, we not only held the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives, we elected a Democratic majority in the U.S. Senate and a Democratic president to the White House. But we weren't done yet. We made sure to hold the president to his word. And because of all of you and your advocacy and activism, because of the movement that you started, we enacted the largest investment in history to combat climate change. The Inflation Reduction Act, $369 billion for energy security, for environmental justice, and for climate change programs. And the goal of lowering U.S. carbon emissions by 40% by the year 2030. You did that. $4 billion to address drought in the West. You did that. U.S. emissions by 2035 will be 20% lower than they would have been without the Inflation Reduction Act. You did that. It's a hell of a start. But we still have more work to do to cut our emissions by half by the year 2035. So we can't get complacent. I know we won't get complacent. Just ask the senator from California. California's been a leader in the fight against climate change, and we still face a crisis. A year ago, I was working hard to help communities recover from 30 atmospheric rivers that hit the Golden State. And as we speak, yet another deadly storm is battering the state of California. 8 of the top 10 largest wildfires in history have ravaged California in just the last 7 years. And across the country, weather and climate disasters have cost us nearly $93 billion in damages. Meanwhile, Republican leaders threaten to roll back our progress. So no, the fight is not over yet. We haven't given up. We're not going to give up. We're going to keep working, and we're going to need your voices and your advocacy to continue so that in 5 years, we know that we'll be continuing to make a difference. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Senator Padilla. Now we're going to hear from Congressman Ro Khanna, the original.
I'm pleased to follow my great home state senator, Senator Padilla from California. I want to really thank Representative Ocasio-Cortez for her vision and boldness, and Senator Markey for his guts and courage in introducing the Green New Deal. I also want to recognize Senator Wyden for his brilliant leadership on the Inflation Reduction Act. Look, the Green New Deal was about more than just the climate and jobs. In my view, it gave this country a sense of common purpose again. I remember when my parents came to the United States in the 1960s. There was a sense that this country could do big things. John F. Kennedy had said we were going to go to the moon. And there were skeptics. There were people who said it would cost too much, but this country had the vision to get that done. And by the way, that's what led to the purchase of microprocessors that spawned the entire Silicon Valley. Would not have happened if we had not gone to the moon. Silicon Valley would not have happened. And this same idea for the Green New Deal that Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Markey have put forward, I believe will inspire this country again to do big things with the grassroots activists like Climate Defiance and Sunrise and Gen Z for Change, and with private industry and with government. It is one of the most proud initiatives that I've been part of, and I thank them again for leading it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rose. Thank you. Next, Senator Dick Blumenthal from Connecticut.
Thank you. I want to join in thanking Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Markey, two great leaders who have really stood up and spoken out and led America. But most important, I want to thank the unions who are here, who have led working men and women to understand to understand that climate change is an existential threat to them, and combating it can create more jobs and better jobs so that we can all be in it together. You know, every American, every single American ought to be part of an American Climate Corps. We all ought to be part of this movement. And it's no longer just a group of people. It's no longer just a part of a political party. It is a movement because of the Green New Deal. And Representative Ocasio-Cortez is absolutely right. At the beginning, and I was proud to be a part of the beginning, people said, oh, it's a dream, it's impractical, it won't work, it won't have any impact. They were proved deeply wrong. Fortunately for America, the Green New Deal has shown results. But I just want to come back to earth from the inspiring visions that we've been offered. It's all at risk. It is all at risk, friends. We had a climate denier in the White House when the Green New Deal began. We could easily have a climate denier in the White House again next year. This fight is about America's future, and it will be fought this year at the ballot box. Let's put climate on the ballot this November. Let's let Americans know what is at risk and what is at stake, which is, without any exaggeration, literally the future of our planet. That's what's at stake. That's why this movement remains so important, and we need to put our planet first. Let's understand and make America understand that we need to win this fight. Thank you all.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Dick. Next, Senator Mazie Hirono from Hawaii. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. I come from the state that I think has the most ambitious alternative energy goals of any state. We want to be totally fossil fuel free by 2045. And when you put out an ambitious goal like that, private sector investments will follow, as it has and continues to in Hawaii. I remember when the Green New Deal was introduced 5 years ago, that was deemed extremist, controversial. I had to defend signing on to that bill. Can you imagine, as we stand here talking about how important this bill was and how it is setting the stage? But at that time, it was deemed pushy, controversial, etc. Well, I call it visionary. I call it looking to the future. When I'm asked, what do young people care about? They care about a lot of really important things, but one critical thing they care about is climate change and what kind of world we're going to be living in. And that is why they look at the Green New Deal. They look at all of the leaders here, as well as others who couldn't join us today. Alexandria, my hat is off to you and my colleagues in the House and Senate, because it takes leadership from all of you and all of us to continue this fight. We cannot say that, you know, the battle has been won. In fact, most of the battles that we thought we had won don't stay won. So eternal vigilance is required of all of us. And yes, we have made tremendous progress. I see Ron Wyden there. You know, we passed a huge bill, more investment and fighting climate change than in the history of our country. Think about that. And that battle continues. But especially, I want to say thank you to my colleagues and to all of the young people who are expecting leadership from us, continued leadership from us, and that they care about climate change. And that's why we're going to continue to work together, holding hands and moving forward to save our planet. Aloha.
Thank you. Thank you, Mazie. Now we're going to hear from Kanyela Ng, the National Director of the Green New Deal Network. Welcome, Kanyela.
When Senator Ed Markey and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez introduced the resolution in 2019, our vision for a fairer, safer, and more joyous world captured the hearts of millions. But the roots of this movement extend far beyond the last 5 years. It stems from historic struggles and organizing across the worker rights, civil rights, tenant rights, welfare rights, and environmental justice movements. The Green New Deal renewed the latent American tradition of mass organizing and needs-based governance, and it reconfigured how we tackle the climate crisis. We expanded the conversation from planet to people, from environment to economy, from right-wing lies about what working families have to give up to the joy, convenience, dignity, and human flourishing that we will all gain from a clean energy economy. But of course, conversation isn't enough. Our movement won the most historic federal investments in climate justice and U.S. manufacturing of all time. At the state and local level, just this year, fueled by the Inflation Reduction Act, we passed Green New Deal policies like the 100% Clean Energy Plan in Minnesota, the Renewable Energy Grant Fund in Alaska, the Climate Resiliency Package in Oregon, and the historic Build Public Renewables Act in New York. These are major, massive accomplishments, but we aren't finished yet. No, ma'am. This is just the highlight reel at halftime. Times are still brutal. It's hard as hell out there, and working people need more. At this critical election and inflection point, our political leaders must present a plan to finish the job. While corporations and far-right MAGA politicians try to fool you by distorting our message, the truth is people across race, generations, and party lines are united around our common sense vision for better jobs, clean air and water, basic dignity for workers, and economic freedom. Where CEOs don't make 800 times more than a factory worker. Where mothers and fathers don't have to drive 5 or 6 miles to the nearest grocery store. Where safe and beautiful schools, parks, hospitals, rapid transit are no longer luxuries, but the norm. Only our elected officials can make this happen. They must stop funneling our tax dollars to massive chemical corporations who pollute our land, and instead invest in family farmers producing local food. Our elected officials must end corporate welfare to oil companies and instead unleash energy freedom by investing in community and rooftop solar and make polluters pay for it. And lastly, they must stop paying weapon manufacturers to indiscriminately bomb the Middle East and instead invest in unionized workers, our own weapons of mass reconstruction here at home. Our elected officials must continue fighting, and the people, frontline communities, must be the wind at their backs. Our vision isn't simply aspirational. There's a massive price to pay if we fail. I felt it last summer when the climate crisis hit my home island of Maui. An unnatural disaster coincided with neglect by our corporate utility, generations of colonial land management, and Lahaina, Maui burned like a tinderbox. 100 dead, 2,000 structures burnt to the ground, thousands of people displaced. And this is the reality that too many face. The crisis is here. The threshold has been reached. There's no reversing it at this point. But the choice today is whether we're willing to move as quickly as possible to save and empower the most people we can. Will we be grieving, or will we have something to celebrate at the 10-year anniversary of the Green New Deal? I believe we will. So I call out to all who still believe in humanity to join us. Join us at the Green New Deal Network. There's lots of work ahead, this election and beyond, knocking on doors, testifying, taking direct action, conducting millions of conversations, and building ourselves up as leaders. We won't stop building armies and institutions of goodness, and together we will win. Aloha, malama pono.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kanyala. Now, again, organized labor's in the house. Judith Howell from the Service Employees International Union, Local 32BJ. 32BJ. So thank you.
Thank you. BJ. Yeah. Wearing the purple today. Unions for all.
That's
Unions for all workers. Unions for all workers, because to have the right and the choice to bargain collectively raises lives for all workers. Okay? Good jobs build strong communities. I don't wear it on my head. I wear it in my heart. I am a security officer in downtown DC office buildings. I take care of the properties when nobody else is there. I see our essential workers come to clean, come to take care of the place. I see our essential workers in the hospitals. I see our essential workers at the airports. These are my brothers and sisters, the service workers. So I'm a proud member of SEIU 32BJ. And it's no surprise that we were the first, very first union to endorse the Green New Deal. I'm here today because since the introduction of the Green New Deal 5 years ago, my union has fought both for massive investments into green, clean energy and to greatly reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Do you see these ads now and or? Hell no. Fossil fuels have got to go. It's a scientific fact. Other industrial countries are ahead of us in this process. There's no more game. And Brother Ing, they not only distorting our message, they distorting their message. Take that money, oil companies and gas companies, take that money and make the transition. Join the Green New Deal and stop fighting what's inevitable for our spaceship, planet Earth. The fight for climate justice is critically important to my union. Our members know all too well the impacts of the growing climate crisis. We live in those communities that disproportionately withstand the worst of climate catastrophes, be those hurricanes, floods, and wildfires, or the growing heat domes impacting our urban areas. Or when a developer doesn't want to wrap a building before they demolish it. Or when a train wrecks, like in East Palestine. Hey, pollution is made worse by climate change, and climate change is made worse by pollution. Moreover, our members work in those jobs that require us to often be the first and second level responders to crises. We believe that working people can and must be a part of the process of reversing climate change. Through massive investment, there exists the opportunity to create good, family-sustaining jobs with union representation. And there will be a place for oil, gas, and coal workers to be retrained and get some of those millions of jobs that will be existing in water, wind, steam, and solar. Don't fall for the okie dokie. The Biden administration has made great strides through the Inflation Reduction Act to address both investment into clean energy and climate resilience while supporting the creation of good jobs. We can and we must go further. We need to realize the dream of the Green New Deal with ongoing larger investments to build the clean energy economy. Assure that good jobs are being created, not just for those building the infrastructure and new manufacturing plants, but also for those who will work in those facilities. And critically important, we will not reduce emissions at the needed pace and scale solely through building out the clean New Deal economy. We must also reduce our dependence on fossil fuels at every level. There's only two kinds of elected officials. They are politicians and they are public servants. Who do you want in office on every level? From city council, from judge, from dog catcher, to the highest levels of American government. You make your choice. Don't get halfway down the ballot and you don't know who you voting for. we must responsibly slow the extraction and usage of fossil fuels, and while doing that, assure that those workers in those industries are able to transition and provide for themselves and their families with dignity, and assure that their communities remain viable, as my brother from the UAW has been able to achieve and he spoke to you about. Look, I'm proud to be a member of my union, and I'm proud my union was an early endorser of Green New Deal. And I say we must keep going to reach the dream of the Green New Deal, a dream that must become a reality if we are to save ourselves, if we are to save our families, our communities, and our only sure spaceship, planet Earth.
Wow. Excellent. Fantastic. Fantastic. And okay, beautiful. And Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez mentioned this report that we're releasing today, the 5 years of the Green New Deal, that is going to be available for everyone, just so that you can see the documentation of the incredible progress which has been made. And now, from Missouri, Congresswoman Cori Bush.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is amazing to be here celebrating 5 years of the Green New Deal alongside all of you. A special thank you, of course, to Senator Markey and to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez for all your work in championing this urgent need for a just and equitable climate action. Thank you to the Green New Deal Network. Thank you to Taproot Earth, the Sunrise Network, and our unions here today, UAW and SEIU. We know that we are experiencing and facing a climate catastrophe. This work is not optional. I would like every person here, every organizer, every union worker, every climate champion who made this 5 years possible to take a moment to acknowledge just how far this movement has come and to reflect on the historic achievements that we have made along the way. In just 5 years, we have delivered the largest federal investment in climate action in U.S. history through the Inflation Reduction Act, which we've heard. And I'm proud that this historic legislation included the passage of Senator Markey and my Environmental Justice Mapping and Data Collection Act, which authorizes funding for research on the environmental and climate harms on communities disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis. This alone is a massive step forward in the name of environmental justice. In just 5 years, after we pushed, and we pushed, President Biden announced the American Climate Corps, which would create a workforce dedicated to fighting the climate crisis while opening good-paying jobs for our communities. In just 5 years, Congress has introduced several federal Green New Deal bills, including My Green New Deal for Cities, which would make a $1 trillion investment in cities, counties, indigenous nations, and territories to provide the resources needed to implement a Green New Deal within their communities. There is also Rep. Bowman's Green New Deal for Public Schools, Rep. Khanna's Green New Deal for Health Act, and Rep. Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Sanders' Green New Deal for Public Housing. All of these pieces of legislation bring us closer to the collective vision of a comprehensive Green New Deal. In just 5 years, this movement has accomplished so much. Imagine where we will be in 5 more years, or 10. These accomplishments are proof that this movement is organized. This movement is energized. This movement is strong, and it is achievable. Because when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. I am so proud to be fighting alongside every single one of you, and together we will keep fighting. The sustainable, equitable, and green future we seek, it is within our grasp. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from Nadia Hutchinson, Just Transition Lawyering Network Manager, who is here today. So welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nadia Hutchinson. Thank you, Senator Markey and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, for your steadfast commitment to centering frontline voices as we tackle the climate crisis. I also want to uplift in spirit movement ancestors who through their steadfast commitment to the betterment of their communities and the earth, created the foundation for the wins we celebrate today. We sadly have lost too many of our movement ancestors too soon due to the pitfalls of fossil fuel extraction. I am the Just Transition Lawyering Network Manager at Taproot Earth. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, a historically segregated city facing environmental injustice. As we struggle to breathe clean air and fight against the continued permitting of dangerous coal facilities, where trains of extraction bring coal from the Appalachian Mountains through my community. The Green New Deal is a legislative response to years of frontline organizing and demands to the climate crisis. In the wake of Hurricane Katrina and the BP oil drilling disaster, the Gulf South to Appalachia has been at the forefront of designing a just transition. For more than a decade, grassroots frontline organizations across the Gulf South and Appalachia collectively envisioned a world where those on the front lines of climate crisis create the solutions. A world in which communities steward our land, water, and energy while repairing the harms of our current system. Over the 5 years since the Green New Deal resolution was introduced, the front lines have fought and won huge wins. A historic amounts and infusion of funding for environmental and climate justice programs, a proliferation of community land trusts, the rematriation of the land by indigenous leaders through community management and land back, the growth of community-owned solar projects and microgrids, and an awakening within young people to join and lead this movement. This is a time for excitement, but we cannot move with such haste that we leave behind the communities who fought for these wins from the beginning. Nor can we support false solutions that extend the life of fossil fuels. The Green New Deal must be accountable to communities, not corporations. We must put the front lines first. Amid the crisis of this moment, the front lines have dared to ask, how can we build a world where we can live, rest, and thrive in the places that we love? The Green New Deal is only a success if it is rooted in the solutions, voices, and power of the front lines. While we celebrate 5 years of the Green New Deal resolution today, in the front lines, we came together last year to celebrate 10 years of movement organizing and power. Together, we said, 10 years, no sleep, our roots run deep. May we be rooted in Black liberation. May we be rooted in indigenous sovereignty. We be rooted in environmental justice and climate justice. Thank you.
Fabulous. Great job. Next, we're going to hear from Michelle Weinling, Political Director of the Sunrise Movement. Beautiful.
Hi, everyone. Today is one of those days where I know all of us here are feeling a huge mix of pride and also so much urgency. I am so proud to stand up here with the movement leaders, with union leaders, with members of Congress who continuously stand up for an investment in our communities and to fight the climate crisis with everything we have. This moment means so much to me. I grew up in a state in Colorado where the fossil fuel industry worked so hard to make climate solutions be about individual solutions. No water? Take a shorter shower. Dirty air? Maybe ride your bike some more. Shut down the oil refinery that's dropping yellow ash on working families' homes? Never. Every year, wildfires in my home destroy lives. Summer days come with air so toxic that you can't go outside. Children go to school across from fracking sites where the chemicals seep into the water supply. I found Sunrise Movement, and in it, I found a movement for thousands of young people to organize together to demand better. Where my Gen Z folks at? What's up? Look at what we've done with all of this collective power. We've achieved so much, from organizing for a civilian climate corps, getting the American Climate Corps and continuing to ask for it to be bigger and better than ever, for organizing for Build Back Better, and in that fight, making it clear that it is politically costly to not stand alongside the public and members of Congress that are fighting for environmental investment. Look at what we just did a week and a half ago with the Biden administration halting future LNG projects, from the incredible organizing like with Taproots and others. There is a shift in power, and we are seeing the youth vote determine what kind of things people in office fight for. Every single young person here and across the country needs to know that we deserve better, and together we can get better. When we began this campaign, all of us were talking about our futures. I held a banner at my first action that said 12 years. Now we're seeing this crisis every single present moment. Each day that passes without a Green New Deal, thousands of people experience the physical and economic destruction of climate disasters. While I say these very words, friends in California are without power, they've been evacuated from their homes, and they can't even walk through their neighborhoods because flooding is so bad. A Green New Deal would rebuild resilient communities and keep people safe. We are so far from done. We can't be here 5 years from now and say we still have so much more to do. It'll be far too late. There should be no convincing necessary anymore, because bold climate legislation that reinvests in people instead of corporate profit is popular, is motivating, and is direly needed. I am ready to keep organizing with my generation across this country to use our collective power to make it politically costly for anyone to delay the critical work needed to fight the climate crisis. We need a Green New Deal, and together I know we're going to get one.
Beautiful job. Thank you. Beautiful job. Beautiful job. So, are there any questions? Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Thank you. No, you're leave her. You are.
I see all